I'm Scarlett Johnson, 21 years old, a third-year engineering student on a full scholarship. I've always been the responsible one in our family of four. My sister Jessica is the golden child who's never had to work for anything. Last night, I received a call from my parents asking me to drop out of college to financially support Jessica's TikTok dreams. I still can't believe what they were suggesting. Where are you watching from today? Hit that like and subscribe button while I tell you how I stood up for myself when my own family tried to sacrifice my future. Growing up in our middle-class neighborhood in Michigan, I always knew my place in the family hierarchy. Our house wasn't fancy, but it was comfortable with 4 bedrooms and a small backyard, where Dad occasionally hosted summer barbecues for his insurance company colleagues. My father, Richard Johnson, worked as a mid-level manager at a large insurance firm. He wasn't particularly ambitious, but earned enough to keep us comfortable. My mother, Linda, worked part-time as an accountant for a local business, choosing reduced hours to be there for the family. Though looking back, that mostly meant being there for Jessica. From my earliest memories, I was expected to be the responsible one. By age 8, I was making my own lunches, doing my laundry, and helping with dinner preparation. My parents explained this as teaching independence, but these lessons never seemed to extend to my sister. Jessica arrived when I was 2 years old, and from the moment she came home from the hospital, there was a clear difference in how we were treated. While I had secondhand clothes and practical birthday gifts like books or school supplies, Jessica received designer outfits and the latest toys. My parents justified this by saying she was more sensitive and needed extra encouragement. By elementary school, the pattern was firmly established. I excelled academically, joining the gifted program and bringing home straight A's. My achievements were acknowledged with brief nods and comments like, "That's what we expect from you, Scarlett." Meanwhile, Jessica struggled to maintain C grades but was lavishly praised for the occasional B. When teachers suggested she might need to work harder, my parents defended her passionately, insisting she was simply creative and not meant for traditional academics. At home, the division of labor was equally unbalanced. I cooked, cleaned, and even helped Jessica with her homework. My sister's chores consisted of occasionally feeding our cat Milo, a task she often forgot with no consequences. If I tried to point out the unfairness, my parents would say, "Jessica just isn't as organized as you are, Scarlett. You need to be understanding." By high school, I had accepted my role. I joined every academic club possible, participated in science competitions, and worked part-time at the local library. I saved every dollar for college, knowing that while my parents contributed to Jessica's performance arts fund, my education would likely be my responsibility. Jessica spent high school flitting between interests. One month it was acting, then singing, then photography. Each new passion required expensive equipment or lessons, which my parents provided without hesitation. None of these interests lasted more than a few months, but that didn't stop the investment in the next big dream. The contrast became painfully clear during our respective college application processes. I spent months researching scholarships, writing essays, and preparing for interviews. I was ecstatic when I received a full-ride scholarship to Westlake Technical University, one of the top engineering schools in the country. My parents' response, "That's nice, dear. Did you see Jessica's new dance routine on Instagram?" Jessica half-heartedly applied to a few state schools, eventually settling on Northern Michigan University because the campus was cute. My parents paid her tuition, bought her a new laptop, furnished her dorm room, and gave her a generous monthly allowance. When I pointed out that they never offered me such support, my mother said, "You've always been so independent, Scarlett. Jessica needs more help adjusting to adult life." Despite the years of unequal treatment, I held on to hope that college would be my escape. Moving 4 states away to Westlake Tech, I finally had the chance to be valued for my abilities and to build relationships with people who didn't constantly compare me to my sister. Little did I know that even hundreds of miles away, my parents' favoritism would find a way to impact my hard-earned independence. As I packed my single suitcase for college, watching Jessica shop for her 4th pair of decorative dorm pillows, I made a silent promise to myself. I would succeed on my own terms. I would build a life where my worth wasn't measured against someone else's. I just never imagined how severely that resolve would be tested, or that I would eventually have to choose between my future and my family's demands. Westlake Technical University changed my life from the moment I stepped onto its sprawling campus. For the first time, I was surrounded by people who valued intelligence, hard work, and ambition. No one knew about Jessica or my family dynamics. I was just Scarlett, the engineering student with a knack for problem solving. My first semester flew by in a whirlwind of challenging classes, late-night study sessions, and newfound friendships. I maintained a 3.9 GPA while working 15 hours weekly at the campus tech support center. The job wasn't glamorous, but it paid well enough to cover my personal expenses with some left over to send home, a habit I continued despite my scholarship covering essentials. During my freshman year, I met Samantha Wilson in my calculus class. She was brilliant, outspoken, and fiercely loyal. When I missed a study session due to a migraine, she showed up at my dorm with pain relievers, her meticulously organized notes, and homemade brownies. We became inseparable after that. Through Samantha, I met Marcus Rodriguez, a computer science major with a booming laugh and an encyclopedic knowledge of obscure movies. We formed a tight-knit study group, pushing each other through difficult assignments and celebrating our victories with midnight pizza parties. Professor Franklin entered my life during sophomore year when I took his advanced structural engineering course. Unlike most professors who barely noticed freshmen, he called me into his office after I aced his notoriously difficult midterm. "Ms. Johnson," he said, peering over wire-rimmed glasses. "Your analysis of the bridge failure case study showed insight I rarely see even in graduate students. Have you considered research work?" That conversation led to a research assistantship in his lab, studying innovative building materials for earthquake-resistant structures. The position came with a small stipend, half of which I dutifully sent home each month, telling myself it was the right thing to do. Meanwhile, Jessica's college experience was dramatically different. She called me regularly, complaining about boring classes and mean professors who expected her to complete assignments on time. 3 months into her first semester, she announced she was dropping out to become a YouTube star. "College just isn't for me, Scar," she explained during one of our video calls. "I need to express myself creatively, not sit in classrooms. Mom and Dad agree it's the right move." Our parents predictably supported her decision completely. They converted our basement into a content creation studio, purchasing professional lighting cameras and editing equipment. When I cautiously asked about the cost during a holiday visit, my father dismissed my concerns. "This is Jessica's career, Scarlett. We need to invest in her future." I didn't point out that they had never invested in mine. Jessica's YouTube channel gained a modest following, but her videos required constant parental investment. After 6 months, she abandoned the platform for Instagram influencing, then podcasting, each transition requiring new equipment and setup. Despite the ongoing drama at home, my college life flourished. I secured a prestigious summer internship at Horizon Technologies, earning more in those 3 months than I had in all my previous jobs combined. The experience was invaluable, connecting me with industry professionals and giving me practical experience in my field. During my second year, I also met David Chen, a business economics major who organized a campus-wide entrepreneurship competition. I entered with a prototype for an app that would help elderly individuals monitor medication schedules, though I didn't win. David sought me out afterward. "Your presentation was incredible," he said, green eyes crinkling at the corners. "The judges undervalued the social impact. Would you like to get coffee and talk about how you might develop it further?" Coffee led to dinner, which led to more dinners. David was thoughtful, ambitious, and genuinely interested in my ideas and experiences. For the first time, I felt truly seen and valued. When I hesitantly told him about my family dynamics, expecting judgment or dismissal, he listened attentively. "You know that's not normal, right?" he said gently. "Parents shouldn't play favorites like that, and you definitely shouldn't feel obligated to send them money while you're a student yourself." I brushed off his concern. "It's just how my family works. They need the help." Throughout all this, I continued sending money home monthly, believing it was going toward household expenses. During our brief phone calls, my parents rarely mentioned finances, focusing instead on Jessica's latest endeavor. By my junior year, I estimated I'd sent home over $15,000 from various jobs and internships. As my third year at Westlake Tech progressed, everything seemed to be falling into place. My GPA remained stellar. Professor Franklin was mentioning graduate school possibilities, and my relationship with David had deepened into something meaningful and supportive. I had even secured an interview for a dream summer internship at Nexus Engineering, a company known for hiring their interns after graduation. I finally felt like I was building the future I deserved, one entirely of my own making. I had no idea that my parents and Jessica were about to test the boundaries of family obligation in a way I never could have imagined. The evening that changed everything started like any other Tuesday. I had just returned from my interview with Nexus Engineering, feeling confident and excited about the possibilities ahead. The hiring manager had practically guaranteed me the position, saying they were impressed by my portfolio and professional demeanor. I kicked off my formal shoes, changed into comfortable sweats, and was heating leftover pasta when my phone rang. My parents rarely called midweek, so seeing Mom's Cell flash across my screen was unusual enough to give me pause. For a brief moment, I worried something had happened to a family member. "Hello?" I answered, pressing the phone against my ear with my shoulder while stirring my dinner. "Scarlett, honey, are you sitting down?" My mother's voice had that artificially bright quality she used when approaching difficult topics. "Your father and I need to discuss something important with you." I lowered the heat on the stove and moved to my small kitchen table. "Is everything okay? Is someone sick?" "Oh no, nothing like that," she assured me. I heard shuffling, then my father's voice joined the call. They must have put me on speaker. "Scarlett," my father began without preamble, "we've been doing a lot of thinking about the family's future. You know Jessica has been working very hard on her TikTok presence." I suppressed a sigh. Jessica had abandoned YouTube, Instagram, and podcasting for TikTok 3 months ago, declaring it was where real influencers build their brand. "Yes, I know," I responded neutrally. "How's that going?" "It's about to go very well," my father continued enthusiastically. "She's got real talent, Scarlett. The algorithm just needs to recognize it. Her content advisor says she's on the verge of breaking through, but she needs to post more consistently and upgrade her production quality." "Content advisor?" I questioned. "She hired someone." "We hired someone," my mother clarified. "The best in the business. He's worked with several viral stars. He says Jessica has what it takes, but she needs to treat this like a full-time job." "Okay," I said slowly, still not understanding why this required an urgent call. "So she's going to focus more on TikTok." "Exactly," my father said. "And that's where we need to discuss the family plan. Jessica can't work a regular job and build her TikTok career. She needs time to create content, engage with followers, and network with other influencers." A knot began forming in my stomach. "I understand. So what does this have to do with me?" There was a pause, then my mother spoke. "Sweetheart, we've been looking at the family finances, and supporting Jessica's career launch is going to require some sacrifices from everyone. We're all going to need to contribute." "I already send money home every month," I pointed out. "Yes, and that's been helpful," my father acknowledged. "But it's not enough for what Jessica needs right now. Her content advisor says she needs better equipment, premium editing software, and a budget for promotional campaigns." "So you're asking for more money?" I clarified, the knot in my stomach tightening. "Well, yes, but there's more to it," my mother continued. "We've thought about this carefully, Scarlett. You've always been our practical, responsible one. You've already completed 3 years of college. That's plenty of education." The implications of her words hit me like a physical blow. "What exactly are you saying?" My father cleared his throat. "We think you should take a break from school, just temporarily. Move back home, get a full-time job in the area, and help support the family while Jessica builds her platform. Once she's established and earning income from sponsorships, you could go back and finish your degree if you still want to." I sat in stunned silence, my pasta cooling forgotten on the stove. They couldn't possibly be serious. "You want me to drop out of college?" I finally managed. "I'm on a full scholarship. I have a 3.9 GPA. I just interviewed for an internship that could lead to a job paying 6 figures after graduation." "We understand it's a lot to ask," my mother said soothingly. But family needs to come first, Scarlett. Jessica has a real chance at something special here. This could set her up for life if it takes off. And what about me? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. What about my life? You've always been the smart one, my father said dismissively. You can pick up where you left off later. Jessica's opportunity is time-sensitive. The TikTok landscape is competitive. She needs to establish herself now while her content concept is still fresh. What exactly is her content concept? I asked, a hint of bitterness creeping into my voice. She does lifestyle and fashion videos with a comedic twist, my mother explained proudly. Her content advisor says her engagement metrics are promising. I closed my eyes, trying to process what was happening. How much money are we talking about? My father cleared his throat again. Well, the new equipment package is about $8,000 to $1,000. Then there's the promotional budget, the advisor's monthly fee, Jessica's living expenses since she'll be focusing on content creation full-time. Just give me a total, I interrupted. Around $4,000 a month should cover everything, he said. Of course you'd live at home rent-free, so your expenses would be minimal. $4,000 a month. More than I would make at most entry-level jobs in our hometown, even using my partial engineering education. And they expected me to send it all home while living under their roof, watching Jessica pursue her dreams while mine withered. I'll have to think about this, I said finally, my voice hollow. Don't take too long, sweetie, my mother urged. Jessica needs the new equipment right away to implement her advisor's strategy. I said I'll think about it, I repeated more firmly this time. Scarlett, this isn't really a request. My father's voice hardened. This is what the family needs right now. We've supported you your whole life. Now it's time for you to support your sister. I ended the call shortly after, promising again to think about it. As I sat in my small apartment kitchen, my dinner now cold and forgotten, I felt something inside me break. Years of accepting second place, of being taken for granted, culminated in this moment when my parents made it crystal clear my future was expendable, my dreams negotiable, my education dispensable, all for Jessica's TikTok career. I went through the motions of eating dinner, though I tasted nothing. Later, I would struggle to remember anything else about that evening, except the overwhelming sense that my life as I knew it had just been upended by the people who were supposed to protect me. After ending the call with my parents, I sat motionless at my kitchen table, their words echoing in my head. The microwave clock showed 9:37 p.m., then 10:22, then 11:45, but I barely registered time passing. My body felt disconnected, floating somewhere above the shock and pain. Around midnight, my phone buzzed with a text from David. How did the Nexus interview go? Still up. I couldn't bring myself to respond. What would I say? Interview went great, but my parents want me to throw it all away for my sister's TikTok dreams. It sounded absurd even in my thoughts. Sleep was impossible. I paced my small apartment, alternating between disbelief, rage, and a deep aching sadness. By 3 a.m., I had progressed to frantically calculating finances on the back of a gas bill envelope. Could I survive without sending money home? Would they really expect me to drop everything immediately? Was there any way to reason with them? When sunrise filtered through my blinds, I looked in the bathroom mirror and barely recognized the pale, hollow-eyed woman staring back. I had a 9 a.m. advanced materials class, but the thought of sitting through a lecture seemed impossible. For the first time in my academic career, I emailed a professor to say I wouldn't be attending. Around 10 a.m., a knock at my door startled me from my daze. Samantha stood in the hallway, concern etched across her face. You missed Franklin's class, she said, walking in without waiting for an invitation. You never miss class. What's wrong? She stopped abruptly, taking in my disheveled appearance and the untouched breakfast dishes on the counter. Scarlett, you look terrible. The genuine concern in her voice broke something inside me. I collapsed onto my couch, tears I had been holding back for hours finally spilling over. My parents want me to drop out, I managed between sobs. They want me to move home and work full-time to support Jessica's TikTok career. Samantha sat beside me, momentarily speechless. They want you to what? She finally asked, her voice rising with each word. Tell me exactly what happened. Through broken sentences and fresh waves of tears, I recounted the previous night's conversation. Samantha's expression shifted from shock to outrage as I described my parents' expectations. That's insane, she declared when I finished. They can't seriously expect you to derail your entire future for Jessica's social media pipe dream. Apparently they can, I said, wiping my eyes. Dad basically said it wasn't a request. Samantha pulled me into a fierce hug. No way, absolutely not. We're not letting this happen. She insisted on calling David, who arrived 20 minutes later with coffee and bagels. As I repeated the story, David's normally relaxed demeanor hardened into something I had never seen before. This is emotional blackmail, he said firmly. They're exploiting your sense of family obligation. But what if they're right? I whispered, voicing the fear that had kept me awake all night. What if I am being selfish? Families are supposed to support each other. Support goes both ways, David countered. When was the last time they supported your dreams? When was the last time Jessica made any sacrifice for you? I had no answer for that. Look, Samantha said pragmatically. Let's look at this objectively. You're on a full academic scholarship. If you drop out, you lose that forever. You're about to secure an internship that could launch your career. Your parents are asking you to throw all that away for something that has no guarantee of success. TikTok stars are a dime a dozen, David added. For everyone who makes it big, thousands never break 1,000 followers. As my friends continued to analyze the situation, I felt an unsettling realization forming. I've been sending the money for years, I said suddenly. Over $15,000 since I started college. I always thought it was for household expenses, but now I'm wondering. Samantha's eyes widened. You think it was going to Jessica all along? The possibility had never occurred to me before, but now it seemed obvious. My parents had never explicitly said what the money was for, and I had never asked. I had simply assumed it was helping with general family needs. I need to check something, I said, pulling out my laptop. I logged into my bank account and began downloading statements tracing the history of my transfers home. The pattern was clear, regular monthly amounts plus extra when I had internships or special projects. Look at this. I pointed to a large transfer from the previous summer. I sent them almost $4,000 after my internship at Horizon Technologies. That was most of my earnings. Did they ever thank you? David asked quietly. I thought back, trying to remember any acknowledgement of the money. There had been none, just the usual brief calls about Jessica's latest endeavor. I need more information, I decided. I need to know what's really been happening with this money. Who can you ask? Samantha inquired. Would your parents tell you the truth? I thought for a moment. My Aunt Grace, I said finally. My mom's younger sister. She's always been straight with me, and she lives close enough to know what's happening at home. Aunt Grace had always been something of an outsider in the family. Unmarried by choice, focused on her career as a veterinarian, she had frequently made subtle comments about the way my parents treated Jessica and me differently. She had been the only one to send me a substantial gift when I received my scholarship, along with a note that said simply, "Use this for you, not for them." I texted her asking if she had time for a call and was relieved when she responded immediately. My friends gave me privacy, stepping out to the hallway as I dialed her number. Scarlett, Aunt Grace answered warmly. This is a surprise. Everything okay? Not really, I admitted, then explained the situation as calmly as I could. Grace was silent for a long moment after I finished. When she spoke, her voice was tight with anger. I was afraid something like this would happen. Your father approached me 6 months ago asking for a loan for Jessica's career development. I declined. What exactly has been happening there? I asked hesitantly. The story she told confirmed my worst suspicions and revealed even more. Jessica had dropped out of college after just 3 months. Since then, my parents had purchased her a new car for transportation to networking events, high-end recording equipment, and hired a content consultant who charged exorbitant fees. They had also paid for Jessica to attend influencer workshops in Los Angeles and New York. They've remortgaged the house, Grace revealed. Your father took a loan against his retirement fund. I tried to talk some sense into them, but Richard accused me of jealousy and not supporting Jessica's talent. We haven't spoken since. And my money? I asked, though I already knew the answer. I can't say for certain, but I'd be surprised if it wasn't going toward all this, she replied gently. After thanking Grace for her honesty, I ended the call and sat in stunned silence. My friends returned concern evident in their expressions. It's worse than I thought, I told them, then shared what Grace had revealed. You need to see what Jessica's actually producing with all this investment, David suggested. We looked up Jessica's TikTok account. Despite the apparently significant financial backing, her videos were unremarkable standard outfit transitions, lip-syncing to popular songs, and attempted comedy sketches that fell flat. Most had view counts in the hundreds, not thousands, and her follower count was barely over 2,000 modest by any standard. This is what they want you to sacrifice your future for, Samantha said incredulously. I reached out to a few former high school classmates who were still in touch with Jessica. Their responses were illuminating. Jessica rarely mentioned having a job, frequently showcased expensive purchases, and often complained about haters who didn't recognize her talent. Several mentioned she had a reputation for expecting special treatment. As the day wore on, the full picture became increasingly clear. My parents had been funneling my money along with their own rapidly dwindling resources into supporting Jessica's unrealistic dreams. Now that they had exhausted their options, they were turning to me as their financial safety net, expecting me to sacrifice everything I had worked for. By evening, the shock had transformed into something else: determination. Professor Franklin, concerned by my unprecedented absence, had emailed to check on me. I requested a meeting for the following day, needing his perspective as well. That night, as I lay in bed surrounded by the evidence of my family's betrayal, I made a decision. For the first time in my life, I would put myself first. I would confront my family directly in person and establish boundaries that should have existed long ago. The thought terrified me, but as David had said when he left, sometimes the hardest choices are the ones that save us. 3 days after the phone call that shattered my world, I found myself driving my old Honda Civic across state lines toward my childhood home. The journey took 6 hours, but I barely noticed the miles passing. My mind was too occupied rehearsing what I would say, anticipating their responses, and strengthening my resolve. Before leaving campus, I had met with Professor Franklin. His office, cluttered with engineering journals and model bridges, had always felt like a safe haven. When I told him the situation, his normally stoic expression gave way to genuine anger. "Ms. Johnson," he said firmly, "I have watched you develop into one of the most promising engineers in your cohort. Your work on the earthquake-resistant materials project alone could form the basis for an exceptional graduate thesis. Abandoning your education now would be a tremendous loss both to you and to the field." When I mentioned the family pressure, he leaned forward, removing his glasses. In my 40 years of teaching, I've seen many bright careers derailed by family obligations. While I respect the importance of family, I must tell you that this request crosses a boundary. Your parents have no right to hijack your future. His words, along with the unwavering support of David and Samantha, gave me courage. David had offered to come with me, but this was a confrontation I needed to handle alone. I arrived at my parents' house on Saturday morning. The familiar 2-story colonial looked exactly as it always had, with my mother's carefully tended flower beds flanking the walkway. For a disorienting moment, I felt like I was returning home from any normal school break. Then I remembered why I was there, and the momentary comfort evaporated. My mother answered the door, surprise and delight crossing her face. "Scarlett, we weren't expecting you." She pulled me into a hug I couldn't bring myself to return. "We need to talk," I said quietly. "All of us." Her smile faltered slightly. "Of course, honey. Your father's in the living room. Jessica's still sleeping. It's early for her." At 11 a.m., it was hardly early, but I said nothing as I followed her inside. The house looked different somehow. New furniture in the living room, an expensive-looking sound system, and what appeared to be professional lighting equipment stacked in one corner. My father looked up from his newspaper, surprised. "Scarlett, this is unexpected. Are you home for the weekend?" "I'm here to discuss your proposal," I said, remaining standing while they sat. I wanted to do it in person. understanding dawned on his face. Ah, good. I'm glad you're taking this seriously. Have you made your decision? I have, I confirmed. But first, I have some questions. My mother glanced nervously at my father. Why don't I make some coffee? Jessica should be up soon. That's fine, I said. But this conversation starts now. Once she returned with coffee, I began methodically asking the questions I had prepared. How much money had they spent on Jessica's various career attempts? What had happened to her college education? What had they done with the money I had been sending home? My father grew increasingly defensive. These details aren't really relevant, Scarlett. The point is, the family needs your help now. The details are absolutely relevant, I countered. I've sent home over $15,000 from my jobs and internships. Where did that money go? To family expenses, my mother said, vaguely. What expenses specifically? I pressed. Scarlett, this interrogation is unnecessary, my father said sharply. The past isn't important. What matters is the plan moving forward. I disagree, I replied calmly. I need to understand exactly what I'm being asked to sacrifice my future for. The conversation was interrupted by Jessica's arrival. She shuffled into the living room in designer loungewear, looking surprised to see me. Scar? What are you doing here? She asked, yawning. Mom and Dad asked me to drop out of college to financially support your TikTok career, I said directly. I'm here to discuss it. Jessica's eyes widened. They what? She looked at our parents. You asked her to drop out. We discussed making some temporary adjustments to help with your career launch, my father said smoothly. Scarlett has always been supportive of your dreams. Jessica frowned. I didn't know you were going to ask her to drop out of school. This apparent surprise gave me pause. What did you think they were going to ask me? Jessica shrugged, avoiding my eyes. I don't know. Maybe to send more money from your internship or something. So you knew they were going to ask me for financial support, I clarified. Well, yeah. We need production budget for my videos and stuff. She flopped onto the couch. But I didn't know about the school thing. That's extreme. Is it? I asked. Because from where I'm standing, asking me to fund your TikTok career at all seems pretty extreme. Jessica's face hardened. You always act like you're so perfect. Some of us aren't meant for boring academic stuff. I'm trying to build something creative. I'm not criticizing your choices, I said carefully. I'm questioning why my education and career have to be sacrificed for yours. Because you've always had everything come easy, Jessica suddenly burst out. Perfect grades, scholarships, professors who love you. I deserve a chance too. Easy, I repeated incredulously. Do you have any idea how hard I've worked for everything I have? While you were getting new cars and equipment and consultants, I was working multiple jobs, studying until 2 a.m., and still sending money home. Money that apparently went straight to your career. Girls, please, my mother interjected. Let's not fight. We're trying to do what's best for the family. How exactly is derailing my education and career best for the family? I challenged. Your sister has a real chance at significant success, my father insisted. These opportunities don't come along every day. Based on what evidence? I asked. Her TikTok has barely 2,000 followers after months of investment. Most of her videos have fewer than 500 views. Jessica's face flushed. That's because we haven't been able to promote properly if I had the right resources. You've had plenty of resources, I interrupted. Aunt Grace told me everything. The car, the equipment, the consultants, the workshops in LA and New York. She told me you dropped out of college after 3 months. She told me about the remortgaged house and Dad's retirement loan. My parents exchanged alarmed glances. Grace had no right to discuss our private finances, my father said stiffly. Someone needed to tell me the truth, I countered. You've been using my money to fund Jessica's hobby while hiding the real financial situation from me. And now that you've exhausted your resources, you expect me to give up my entire future. It's not a hobby, it's my career, Jessica protested. I turned to her. Have you ever earned any money from it? She squirmed uncomfortably. Not yet, but my content advisor says, the content advisor you're paying, I pointed out. Of course, he says you're on the verge of success. That's how he keeps getting paid. The conversation devolved from there. My parents accused me of being selfish and ungrateful. Jessica alternated between angry outbursts about my privilege and tearful declarations that I was crushing her dreams. I maintained my composure, continuing to press for specifics about their financial decisions and future plans. The breaking point came when my father said, "After everything we've done for you, this is how you repay us, by refusing to help your sister when she needs you." Something inside me snapped. What exactly have you done for me? I worked for my grades. I earned my scholarship. I've paid for my own expenses while sending money home that you used for Jessica. So please tell me specifically what I should be grateful for. The room fell silent. My father's face reddened with anger. I won't be spoken to this way in my own home. If you can't support this family, then perhaps you're not really part of it. His words hung in the air like a physical thing. My mother gasped softly. Even Jessica looked shocked. "Dad," she said uncertainly, "that's a bit much." But the line had been crossed. I stood up suddenly calm in a way I had never experienced before. "Thank you for clarifying where I stand. I won't be sending any more money home. I won't be dropping out of school. And I won't be made to feel guilty for pursuing the future I've worked for." "Scarlett, he didn't mean it," my mother began, but I held up a hand to stop her. "I think he did. And that's valuable information for me to have." I gathered my purse and keys. "I love you all, but I won't set myself on fire to keep someone else warm. Especially not when that person has never been asked to even feel a chill." My father stood as well. "If you walk out that door, don't expect to be welcomed back until you've reconsidered your priorities." I met his gaze steadily. "My priorities are exactly where they should be. I'm sorry yours aren't." As I walked to my car, tears blurred my vision, but my steps didn't falter. For the first time in my life, I had stood up for myself against the family dynamics that had defined my existence. The pain was excruciating, but beneath it, almost imperceptible at first, was something new: freedom. The drive back to campus passed in a blur of tears and quiet revelations. I checked into a roadside motel, halfway unable to safely continue through my emotional storm. That night, alone in a generic room with scratchy sheets, I cried until there seemed to be no tears left, then stared at the ceiling until dawn broke. The following weeks were among the hardest of my life. I moved mechanically through my days, attending classes, completing assignments, showing up for my campus job. Academically, I functioned on autopilot, my years of discipline carrying me forward when emotional energy failed. But inside, I was processing the seismic shift in my understanding of family obligation and self-worth. David and Samantha became my lifelines. They took turns checking on me, bringing meals when I forgot to eat, sitting with me in silence when words failed. David never said, "I told you so," though he had every right to. Instead, he simply held me when the waves of grief became overwhelming. It feels like they died. I confessed to him one evening a month after the confrontation. "Is that crazy to mourn people who are still alive?" "You're mourning the family you thought you had," he said softly. "The parents you deserved but never really existed. That's a profound loss." Professor Franklin proved to be another unexpected source of support. When my performance in his class briefly faltered, he called me to his office. Instead of a lecture, he offered practical help, connecting me with the university's counseling services and extending deadlines without being asked. "Engineering isn't just about building bridges between physical locations, Ms. Johnson," he told me. "Sometimes it's about bridging the gap between who we were raised to be and who we choose to become." The university counselor, Dr. Winters, helped me navigate the complex emotions of family estrangement. "What you're experiencing is a form of complex grief," she explained. "Complicated by the fact that the relationship isn't ended by death, but by choice, and further complicated by your awareness that this choice was necessary for your well-being." Through weekly sessions, I began to untangle the web of guilt, obligation, and conditional love that had shaped my family dynamics. I learned to recognize patterns of emotional manipulation and the difference between healthy sacrifice and self-destruction. Financially, the transition was challenging but manageable. Without sending money home, my campus job and savings covered my basic needs. I applied for additional scholarship funds available to students with demonstrated financial need, explaining my changed circumstances. The university responded with modest but helpful emergency assistance. David introduced me to his parents during spring break, a couple who welcomed me warmly despite having just met me. Watching their balanced, respectful relationship with David and his younger sister showed me what healthy family dynamics could look like. "You're always welcome here," David's mother told me privately. "Holidays, summers, anytime you need family space." As months passed without contact from my parents, I focused increasingly on building my future. I secured the Nexus Engineering internship, which paid enough to cover summer housing and add to my savings. My work there impressed the management team, leading to hints about post-graduation employment possibilities. 8 months after our confrontation, an unexpected text message appeared on my phone. "Can we talk? I miss you." From Jessica. After consulting with Dr. Winters and considerable deliberation, I agreed to meet my sister at a coffee shop near campus. She arrived looking different than I remembered, her designer clothes replaced with simple jeans and a sweater, her carefully maintained highlights grown out. "Thanks for meeting me," she said awkwardly, fidgeting with her coffee cup. "I wasn't sure you would." "I wasn't sure either," I admitted. "What did you want to talk about?" Jessica took a deep breath. "First, I want to apologize. I've had a lot of time to think about everything, and I was wrong. So wrong. About you, about what I deserved, about everything." Her words surprised me. Jessica had never been one to admit fault. "What happened?" I asked cautiously. "Reality happened," she said with a humorless laugh. "After you left, things got rough at home. Dad's company downsized and he took a pay cut. The content advisor disappeared once it was clear there was no more money. I tried to keep the TikTok thing going, but without the promotion budget, I barely got any views." She paused, collecting herself. "Mom had to go back to work full time. Dad sold the boat. I got a job at the mall, my first real job ever. It was humbling to say the least." "I'm sorry things have been difficult," I said, surprised to find I genuinely meant it. "Don't be—" Jessica shook her head. "It needed to happen. I needed to grow up. But that's not why I wanted to see you. I wanted to tell you that you were right to stand up for yourself, and I'm sorry I never stood up for you." The conversation that followed was the most honest we'd ever shared. Jessica admitted she had always been jealous of my intelligence and drive while simultaneously taking for granted the privileges she enjoyed. She confessed to manipulating our parents' favoritism, knowing they would give her whatever she wanted if she played the right cards. "They're not doing well," she said toward the end of our meeting. "Financially or otherwise. Dad especially took it hard when you left. His pride won't let him reach out, but I know he regrets what he said." "I'm not ready to contact them," I said honestly. "I might never be ready." Jessica nodded. "I understand. I just thought you should know." She hesitated. "I'm going back to school. Community college for now, then maybe transfer. I'm thinking about accounting, actually. Turns out I'm pretty good with numbers when I actually try." "That's great," I said, genuinely pleased for her. "You always were smarter than you let on." Before we parted, Jessica asked hesitantly if I might be willing to give her advice on scholarship applications and study strategies. I agreed with clear boundaries I would help with education, but I wouldn't discuss our parents' lend money or let her stay with me. She accepted these terms with a maturity I wouldn't have thought possible a year earlier. Over the following months, Jessica and I rebuilt a cautious relationship. She enrolled in classes, got a better job as a bank teller, and moved into her own apartment. We texted weekly, occasionally met for coffee, and gradually discovered that without our parents' toxic dynamic between us, we might actually like each other as people. Through Jessica, I learned that my parents were slowly recognizing the consequences of their choices. The remortgaged house, Jessica's abandoned equipment, and years of financial mismanagement had left them struggling. My father's health had suffered, his blood pressure dangerously high from stress. My mother had reached out to Aunt Grace, beginning the slow process of repairing that relationship. 3 years later, as I prepared to graduate with my master's degree in structural engineering, I had built a life I was proud of. I had accepted a position at Nexus Engineering with a starting salary that exceeded my expectations. David and I were engaged, planning a small wedding with friends who had become family. My research with Professor Franklin had been published in a respected industry journal. Jessica completed her associate's degree and transferred to a state university, maintaining a surprising 3.7 GPA. She discovered a genuine interest in business finance and secured an internship at the bank where she worked. My relationship with my parents remained complicated. Through Aunt Grace's mediation, we had progressed to occasional phone calls and brief visits. The dynamics had shifted fundamentally. I maintained clear boundaries, and they had begun to respect them. They were no longer the center of my emotional world, but peripheral figures I could engage with on my own terms. The scars remained. Certain phrases or situations could still trigger the old pain, but I had learned that healing doesn't mean forgetting or even completely forgiving. Sometimes it simply means building a life where the past no longer controls your future. If there was one thing I learned from this journey, it was this. Sometimes love means saying no to those you care about. Sometimes the healthiest thing you can do for a relationship is to step back and let natural consequences unfold. And sometimes the family you create through choice proves stronger than the one you were born into. What do you think about my decision to prioritize my education over my family's demands? Have you ever had to establish boundaries with people you love? Share your experiences in the comments. And if this story resonated with you, please like and subscribe for more personal journeys. Life is full of difficult choices, but remember, choosing yourself isn't selfish, it's necessary. Thank you for listening to my story, and I hope it gives you the courage to stand up for your own worth when necessary.